Hello, I'm Samuel Martinez Monteverde, and this is my final project for Luna. I'll be doing the perspective of friends and peers when transgender individuals come out. Now, with that said, let's begin. For question number one, what challenges are typically faced by your party? I would actually argue that lack of information and overload of information, or just confusion during the moment, are some of the most common problems during this day and age. Lack of information can be summarized in 2 points. The first being that people don't really research that much about these topics. Even though nowadays we have all the answers for every question in our phones, we still choose not to go deep into a lot of topics because a lot of people just don't think that this kind of situations can happen to them. That connects to my second point, which would be that these kinds of moments are very romanticized by the media. Looking at some Netflix shows and movies, for example, show a very unrealistic way of how situations like this can be played out, making that when the situation actually happens, then the friend or peer doesn't really know what to do in this moment. The second problem would be the overall overload of information in the moment or just overall confusion. These kinds of problems are very dangerous because, as shown in the first point, a lot of strong feelings can come out of nowhere because of how fragile the situations are for the transgender individuals, giving a sort of pressure to the friend or peer, making that some people show negative or even destructive emotions due to said pressure. Another point would be that such delicate information must be processed with care, almost like with a pinch of salt, and making that in such a short period of time can be hard for a lot of people, especially if no previous information was researched, which connects to the lack of information, and also if there was no previous experiences similar to this one. Now for question number 2, how did your party handle those challenges in Luna? For this question, I choose the character of Ali because it's the most direct example of this problematics that the friends about the friends and peers. And just as a little side note, Ali is one of my favorite characters of the book because of her actions regarding Luna's reveal. Now, for my quote number 1, I choose Ali frowned a little. Trans what? Right, doesn't know the lingo. Number 2 would be show me what? Ali cut me off. Your boobs? Your tea boobs? She snorted and drank again. For number 3 would be that disbelief before reality smacks you in the face look, denial, fear of facing the truth. And number 4 would be Allison manifested by my side. Would you give this to Liam? She handed me a present. Or Luna, or whoever is he today. Now, in the first quote, Ali doesn't know what both Reagan or Liam are talking about. Because let's remember that this story is supposed to take place in between 2005, maybe 2007, not only making the information a lot harder to find, but but everything regarding sexuality and transgenders was considered as taboo by the American society. The second quote reinforces the idea of the first quote by showing Ali's ignorance. She makes a joke while all the emotions are still hitting her mind, not knowing if it could be offensive to Liam. But she doesn't mean to be rude or to offend nobody. She just doesn't know if the joke is appropriate or not. Now, this is the part when the confusion part hits Ali, The third quote shows that Ali is conflicted. She's thinking a lot of things at the same time, most of them negative, because Ali had a crush on Liam since they were little kids. And the confusion of what is going on makes her think about the worst things that she could do, like leaving Liam alone when he has this moment of need. Now, the last quote is the reason why Ali is one of my favorite characters. Even if she is still conflicted and doesn't really know what's going on, she's still looking for Liam's friendship. She still loves him. And even if she is a little confused, she still got the spirit and the heart for not leaving Luna alone. Now, the third question: how does your party typically handle these challenges in the United States? It pretty much depends on the time and the age groups. Again, nowadays we got a lot more information than 10 or even 5 years ago. So it is predictable that the more we move forward in time, the acceptance and positive reaction are going to increase. According to Mark Schiffman in his article Peer Relations in Adolescence with Gender Identity Disorder, these difficulties are intricately connected to a social climate that often breeds discrimination, as it has generally been assumed and, and supported by the influx of recent research that gender nonconforming youth are often excluded by their peers or become targets of harassment, abuse, and violence. Even though we are now on the 2010s, because this was written on 2013, information about transgenders was still very little, and the little amount that we had was either very vague or just negative in general. Combining that with what previous generations used to think, then we just have this huge disaster of misinformation and confusing feelings which end up in a negative outcome. Now, Sarah Van Cleve says in her article for Refinery 29, a survey by YouGov of more than 2,000 participants found that 27% of respondents, sorry about that, were not open to being friends with anyone who identifies as transgender, even though around 40% said said they personally know someone who is trans. The good news, of course, is that 73% of the respondents must have answered the question with an either positive or neutral reaction. Now we can see the improvement. The facts the fact that there is more acceptance now not only comes from more people coming out as transgenders, but it is also because these people are doing blogs, are putting their voices out and informing the outsiders what what all this is about. Also includes the friends and peers. It is not perfect by any means, but it is a clear improvement. Now, Lisa Littman in her article explains that in the time period just before announcing that they were transgender, 63.5% of IS exhibited an increase in their internet social media. Looking at more modern practices, now that we have more information that can make the feelings of more people under control, because we have a lot more information nowadays, showing the confusion being lowered from previous years. And with that, more acceptance in the end from the part of outsiders, like the friends and peers of these individuals. And lastly, The William Institute writes that until recently, surveys about transgender people and their rights were rare. However, in 2015, several studies have assessed that American public's opinion about transgender people and their rights. Studies suggested that a majority of the American public supports the en- e- enactment, I'm sorry about that, of non-discrimination protections, adoption, adoption rights, and open military service for transgender people. Reinforcing the previous quote, this shows that people are now willing to show acceptance and to read more information that we didn't have back in the day. It is something that may not be perfect, but we all have to work hard to achieve the perfection that we so desire. Now, for the last question, do you think your party should handle these issues differently? Why or why not? If you decide that the issues should be handled differently, how should they be handled? Well, in my most sincere opinion, I feel that the Friends and Peers Party are going through the right path. As I said before, it is not perfect. We still have a lot of people that need to look up information, that need to do their homework so we can reach this state of hypothetical perfection. And we also need to see trans individuals not lower but also not higher. We need to look at them as regular human beings. We need to see them as a neighbor. Because ironically, when you overhype a situation about acceptance, it ultimately makes it look like those actions are something new and not really the status quo that we need. These are the sources I got. The images of Ali were made by me. They were really fun to make. And yeah, thanks for your attention.